Hey, I'm Cole Cabana, AEW wrestler, and you're watching the BWF Wrestling Podcast. Woo!
All right, Aaron, we're talking about WrestleMania 8. The fans were sweating bullets and worried about what their main event was going to be, as was Vince McMahon. As you were sweating bullets while we were at our title cards screen there, and I have to say, you were rubbing your head, shaking your head. There's just a whole lot of self, I want to say animosity or self, what's the word that I'm looking for? Self-doubt, self-hatred,
Self-loathing. I don't know.
Self-loathing. That's exactly the one that I was looking for. Thank you. Yes. Chin up, man. Look, it's only wrestling. All right.
It's only a wrestling podcast. Yeah, no, God, that beginning sucked. But this does not suck. This WrestleMania 8, honestly, we could say this is definitely the definition of card subject to change. There was a lot of matches that were supposed to happen or got changed along the way to Road to WrestleMania. Speaking of which, Hawk of the Legion of Doom, he was suspended at this time. Texas Tornado was suspended. Jimmy Snuka was suspended. There was rumblings of the steroid trial that was coming, and Vince decided to clean up the company a little bit and start drug testing these people, and they all got suspended. Speaking of drugs and testing, there was actually a drug bust attempt right before the show. Police and dogs were all over the place, and they searched every single wrestler and person associated with the WWF as they entered the arena, but they did not find one single thing. Blackjack Lanza actually got tipped off to this news before the show started, and he somehow managed to get word out to all of the boys who ditched all of their bad stuff before they got to the arena. So, yeah, nice. Good thing. Yeah, that could have been catastrophic for WrestleMania that day for sure.
Now, where is this WrestleMania taking place, Aaron?
This is in Indianapolis at the Hoosier Dome.
Have you ever been to Indianapolis?
No, I have not, but apparently that's where the Royal Rumble is going to be in 2025.
Oh, really? This upcoming one?
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to Indianapolis. It's where Dave Letterman's from.
Heard good things about it.
Have you?
Yes.
Okay. Go on.
It's a great city. That's all I heard. I had someone who used to visit there. Their favorite team is the Colts, so can't get enough of Indianapolis.
Go Colts.
Go Colts.
Okay. Sorry. So, drug crisis averted. Thanks to Blackjack Lanza. Is he your favorite Blackjack?
I guess, because he saved WrestleMania. So for that, he is my favorite Blackjack.
Good stuff. I agree. Now, you were saying that the main event originally was going to be Hogan versus Sid before there was talk of Flair. Is that because Flair hadn't joined the company yet, or why was it Sid in the first place?
That's right. About 10 months in advance, the plan was actually Sid versus Hogan, but then Flair signed. So Sid got injured between SummerSlam and the Royal Rumble. Vince changed his mind. It's like, okay, let's go with Flair. But then they started doing house shows, and business was not good. The fans were not really receptive of the matches, and they just didn't draw. Even in Madison Square Garden and all the WWF rich areas, they couldn't sell. They couldn't sell the house shows, even with Flair and Hogan as the main event. So they decided to pivot and go back to Hogan versus Sid.
Now, in retrospect, do you think that those house shows would not have sold well anyways? Because Hogan is unquestionably getting cold at this point. So maybe it wasn't a matchup between Hogan and Flair that was cold. It was Hogan and everybody. Nobody wanted to see Hogan anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Hogan's shtick was getting old. And you could tell, especially around the Royal Rumble 1992, where the fans are booing him and cheering Sid. We talked about that before on our Sid episode in our archives. But yeah, definitely Hogan was getting stale with the crowd. And with rumblings of the steroid trial coming up, he decided to pivot and make this his retirement match and so he can separate himself from the company. But we will get into that all a little bit later.
All right, so let's start it off. The match, I took a look at the card before we started going on the back of the VHS, I think, and I'm pumped for, my two favorite guys. Everybody knows this from the early 90s in the WWF was the British Bulldog, of course, with his braided hair and his physique, and then Berserker was also my favorite. And I see that they have a match on this one, so I'm excited. Is that the first one right out of the gate?
Unfortunately, due to time constraints,
What?
The British Bulldog and Berserker was canceled. I'm so sorry, Pat.
Got any sad music or ohs or something like that?
What's your favorite Berserker match, Pat?
I enjoy his Royal Rumble appearances, actually, and I always thought that he was good in that. And then I also like his appearance in Clerks. You remember Clerks, right? My love for you is like a gone berserker. Would
Never
you
watched
like
Clerks.
to having berserker? You don't like Clerks?
Never saw it. Never watched it.
Okay. Anyways, so that's canceled. So what is the opening match?
All right, well, we see Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon opening the pay-per-view, welcoming us to the Hoosier Dome, only to have our opening match be Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, the newly turned heel Heartbreak Kid, versus
against Marty Jannetty in their finally the matchup everybody's wanted to see. The Rockers implode, and we're going to see Shawn Michaels heel against Marty Jannetty. What happens when the Rockers rock the foundation?
Well, that would have happened, except Marty Jannetty got himself arrested before the show.
God.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. So much disappointment here. Yeah. Marty was out with a 19-year-old girl who tried to use a fake ID to buy beer, and when the cop arrested her, Marty Jannetty grabbed the cop and got thrown in jail when the cop found cocaine on him.
So there's a whole lot of ways that Marty could have avoided that, but that all goes down the drain because Marty likes to party, and that's still as true to this day as it was back in 1991. Party Marty. Unquestionably derailed his career. He'd be a completely different person right now.
Oh my God. The match would have been so good too. Yeah. But
anyways,
alas, we get Tito Santana's last pay-per-view appearance in the WWF. His all-time record was 3-19.
Oh, what? In pay-per-views?
Yeah, in pay-per-views, including Royal Rumble appearances. Yeah, 3-19. If you want to include dark matches, 4-20.
Wow.
But in real life, Tito and Shawn, they would actually get into an altercation on the way to WrestleMania on a plane where Tito had to get something out of his overhead bag. When he got back to his seat, HBK took Tito's seat. Tito got the stewardess to move him. Shawn started shooting off the Tito. So Tito threatened to kick the shit out of him, and Shawn Michaels backed down. You can listen to that story on YouTube. Before the match, we get a classic Bobby Heenan moment when he calls Reba McEntire Ariba and says that she is Tito's sister. That's always good stuff.
Nice.
But as far as the match goes itself, the action spilled outside the ring, with Michaels using the ropes to his advantage, delivering a picture-perfect springboard dive onto Santana. A fan is screaming bloody murder at Shawn for what he did to Marty. It's actually quite funny. Back inside the ring, Michaels continued to showcase his athleticism, executing a series of high-impact moves, including a top rope double axe handle. Santana refused to back down, mounting a comeback with a series of clotheslines and suplexes, but Michaels' resilience and cunning enabled him to regain control, culminating in a devastating super kick that secured the victory. Shawn then throws Sensational Sherry down in the ring as they strike their pose.
Nice. Yes, I always loved this little part of the gimmick that they did.
Yeah, me too. Sherry played a role perfectly. They were such a good pairing. Fans, leave your comments. Is Sensational Sherry and Shawn Michaels the best pairing for Sherry, or was it Macho? Was it Ted DiBiase? What do you think? Leave it in the comments.
That is a good question. And as you know, the fans, they respond rapidly to this, to these call to action questions we have. And I feel like we should probably reward them with something. Do we have anything that we could give to somebody for giving their opinions about such things?
Of course, we have all kinds of gifts and prize packages, including maybe one of these guys here. It could be an LGN wrestler. It could be one of these guys here.
Oh, wow.
It could be rolling papers.
You love it, man. When we went to WrestleMania, like the lead up to WrestleMania, Aaron Bishop loves giving away his stuff.
I do.
He's always had it in him. He has always loved to just, whatever he has, he'll give it away to you. Just leave a comment. Now, I have a question about that Macho Man figure. Is that one of the figures that you recently repaired on your Scorching Hot popular video retro repairs?
Well, no, it's in the... Oh, you mean this guy here?
That one.
Silly goose. No, actually, yeah. I just got this Macho Man. I found it on Facebook. I found a lot. This guy did not know what he had. He had a lot of these wrestlers, and he was selling them for pretty dirt cheap. And I'm telling you, man, there's not a scratch on these here. They are in pristine condition.
Nice. There you go.
But I do have a project coming up very soon. We're turning a Jesse the Body Ventura into an NWO Hulk Hogan, and it's going to blow everybody's mind. It's going to be amazing.
That's awesome.
That's
awesome.
That on
the retro restoration action figure segment, one of our favorites here at the BWF. Be one of the true nation by watching Aaron's retro restoration.
Yes, don't miss out. It's riveting stuff, folks. It's riveting. Absolutely riveting.
I'm not saying anything bad about it.
Listen, never mind. I won't get into it now. But let's move on. Let's move on to Jake versus The Undertaker. We've talked about this a little bit in our previous episodes as well. We have a Jake the Snake episode in our archives. Go check that out. But this feud started on Saturday night's main event in February of 92. Jake had just lost a match with Macho Man, and he was waiting behind the curtain to ambush Savage and Elizabeth with a steel chair as they walked through. Just as he was about to hit him, Taker appeared and grabbed the chair from Jake, solidifying the face turn that the fans and the crowd were begging for.
What do you think about this face turn? Do you think that it's one of the more successful face turns from a wrestler?
I mean, he would be face for years. He wouldn't turn heel again until, 1998? Late 1998. So, yeah, I would say pretty successful face turn, absolutely. Became one of the, the founding main figures of the WWF at the time. One of the leaders of the new generation.
That's right. And then on to lead the Attitude Era. One of the top four.
Top four in Attitude Era? Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? You got Stone Cold, Rock, Undertaker. Yeah. Mankind or Triple H. Yeah, for sure.
I don't think you could put Triple H in the top four.
No, Mankind
I know that
for sure.
He loves to put himself in the top four.
He does.
McMahon, maybe Mr. McMahon. I don't know. Anyways, Sable. Sable's definitely one of the icons of the Attitude Era. That's right.
There you go. Yes, absolutely.
Responded to her charismatic persona.
Yes, she had assets that were really good to the company. But that being said,
let's go all the way back to Jake versus Taker. Now, is this the match where Jake has said to them, I'm leaving the company after this to go to WCW and have a coal miner's glove match?
It is actually. Jake the Snake was promised a spot in the writing, in the booking committee for the WWF, but instead it was given back to a returning Pat Patterson, who was coming back after the scandal The Ring Boy scandal.
One of the many of the Ring Boy scandals, which has reared its ugly head again recently.
Mm-hmm. So Jake, he didn't take the news very well, and he threatened to no-show WrestleMania if he wasn't granted his release. So he showed up here in bad shape, probably under the influence of a few things. And he just went to business for himself, basically. The original finish was supposed to be a tombstone in the ring, but he called an audible. And after The Undertaker kicked out of 2 DDTs, he rolled to the outside, took the weakest-looking tombstone pile driver in the history of mankind. It looked like Jake's head was 4 feet away from the ground. And he got rolled into the ring, pinned 1, 2, 3. Meltzer gave this thing less than 1 star. A quarter of a star. Like, it's not very good at all. It's
fairly fast too. 6-minute long match. I mean,
Yeah.
Taker's intro is longer than 6 minutes these days at WrestleMania.
Yep, exactly. So Jake, he would leave the WWF, go to WCW, and have that feud with Sting.
Great. Okay, so what do we got coming up next? Possibly the match of the night. Although I was going to say unquestionably, but there's some good matches throughout this. There's more than one good match at this Mania, I think. Bret Hart versus Piper. Now, for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, Aaron, I know you're going to want to get into great detail on this. I can sense that you're going to want to go move by move on this. Give me the broad strokes. Take me through the match.
Broad strokes, yes. They had that interview with Mean Gene.
Set the scene for me. I'm closing my eyes now. I want to see this match. Here we go.
You're going to close your eyes. All right. Well, it said before the match, they had the interview with Mean Gene. Piper says that he's known Bret since he was little, and they have some jabs setting the tone for this match.
Gets a little. It starts off jokey, and then Piper gets a little too mean with it. Hey.
Exactly. Bret don't like it.
No.
And the two men, they do start with some mat wrestling to start. Bret ends up sending Piper through the ropes. Roddy gets frustrated and spits in Bret's face before calling for a test of strength. It turns into traded arm ringers, and Bret ends up latching onto Piper's arm with an iron grip. Piper finally breaks free, but Bret hits a dropkick only to sell that he hurt his shoulder.
Ooh, setting up the shoulder.
Piper looks concerned until Bret surprises him with a roll-up for a 2 count. Piper takes offense to the trick and slaps him. So Bret responds with a crossbody that takes them both over the top rope. Piper is the first inside the ring, and he opens the ropes to let Bret inside. But Bret is hesitant, as he would be. But as soon as he gets into the ring, Piper cheap shots Bret after telling him to tie his boot. Piper follows out with a stiff punch and a bulldog, where we see now that Bret is bleeding from the head. Yeah. Bret gets into the ring.
Tie Piper's boot or tie his own boot?
Sorry, Bret gets in the ring. Piper tells Bret to tie his own shoe because it's loose, right? His laces are loose. So Bret goes in to tie his shoe, and Piper sucker punches him.
Nice. Okay.
As you would. He's Roddy Piper.
I've never heard of that move before. But if anybody would care about his wrestling boots being loose, it's Bret Hart. It's a good move. The guy's a nerd when it comes to wrestling.
We see that Bret is bleeding now. Piper pounces on his opportunity and attacks the cut. Bret fights back with a sunset flip and a running forearm before both men go down to a double clothesline. Bret soon takes back control with some of his signature spots and goes for a sharpshooter, but Piper blocks it. He then attempts a bulldog, but Piper shoves him into the ref. With the referee down, Piper grabs the ring bell, but he's hesitant to use it. Heenan, he's just yelling, "What the hell? Use the bell." Piper finally decides not to do it and throws the bell out of the ring before trying a sleeper hold instead. But Bret pushes off the turnbuckles with his feet and lands on top of Piper for the 3 count. In a show of sportsmanship, Piper handed the WWF Intercontinental title to Bret, helping him to his feet and placing the belt around his waist.
Cool. I don't like what Bret is wearing in this match.
No, I love that pink outfit. I love it.
It's pink on pink, and it looks weird when you put the belt on it. He needs a little something. Yeah, he needs a little something in the. It just doesn't work. Like a little white or something going across the middle. I don't know. Look.
That's so good.
Looks
What are
like
you
he's wearing
talking
a
about?
leotard. Although I guess technically he is wearing a leotard. Yeah. Anyway.
But as far as the match goes, what do you give this match rating? Do you remember this match? Do you like this match? I loved it growing up as a kid. Online feedback I'm seeing, there's a lot of people that say that they don't remember liking this match back in the day, but now that they go back and watch it again, they love it.
I don't think that it probably was it's probably at its time, maybe not many WWF fans. Because, I mean, WrestleMania was like, you weren't there to really watch a wrestling match more than you were there to see your favorite guy come out and then somebody win. Like, and that's why you could get away with these matches a lot of the times being not very long, because you just wanted to see your favorite guys just make an appearance. And then you got this match, which is, I mean, it's a lot more technical. Probably the most technical WrestleMania match since WrestleMania 3 for the Intercontinental title as well.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars. I would give it 4.5. I loved it.
I get a 4 as well. Yes.
Brett had to convince Vince that he got busted open hard way because Vince was mad about the blood, but Brett did it so well that he convinced he convinced Vince that it was hard way, and he got away with it. Not like Ric Flair, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Next on the pay-per-view, Lex Luger makes a surprise appearance. He has a non-compete with WCW, so he's here as a rep for the WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation. Not a good time to have this organization start up when there's a steroid trial right around the corner, when all your bodybuilders are on steroids.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. But I guess they couldn't get him any other way, right?
No. He wasn't allowed to wrestle, so this is their loophole. But yeah, then we get some more filler. We get Virgil, the Big Boss Man, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Sergeant Slaughter versus the Nasty Boys, the Mountie, and the Repo Man, with Ray Combs from Family Feud announcing. Mm-hmm. Now, apparently this was Ray Combs reaching out to the WWF. He had a contact in there. He really, really wanted to do some announcing for the WWF, so this is just as a favor to him.
Yeah, he loved it. He loved it. R.I.P. Ray Combs, the true Family Feud host, as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Like, there's probably some people in the audience that came there just to see Hacksaw come out and do his thing. You know, they don't want to see him wrestle, I don't know, more than 5 minutes, I'd imagine. How long is this match?
5 minutes. Literally 5 minutes, 22 seconds, yeah.
Nice.
This would be Sergeant Slaughter's last pay-per-view match until December 1997. Virgil would pin Knobs after hitting him with a biker helmet. Virgil.
Nice.
Yes.
Virgil got the pin. Wow.
Virgil gets 2 WrestleMania wins. WrestleMania 7, WrestleMania 8.
Hey, I don't think we brought that up in our episode about him. Good stuff.
No, we didn't.
Fans, who would you like to see at a WrestleMania signing show? Would you like to see Hacksaw? Would you like to see Sergeant Slaughter? The Nasty Boys, maybe? Mounties? Maybe we'll put up a poll, see what fans want to see at the Wrestle Convention at WrestleMania this year.
Yes, that's actually pretty good. Vote for who you want the BWF to get at WrestleCon this year.
We can get anybody.
We can get anybody.
Anyone.
We had connections, man.
Last wrestled in the 90s. We can absolutely get anybody.
Yeah. Moving on to Macho Man versus Flair. This is, as a kid, this is one of my favorite storylines, one of my favorite matches. Let's see if this holds up. Leading into this match, President Jack Tunney will hold a press conference in February to announce the number 1 contender for the world title. The 5 candidates were Hogan, Sid, Taker, Roddy Piper, and Randy Savage. Tunney would announce Hogan would be the number 1 contender at WrestleMania. After some happenings over the following weeks, which we will detail later, Hogan stepped out of the world title match, and Tunney went with his second choice, Randy Savage, who was still generating heat since the Jake Roberts storyline. Leading to the show, Flair started claiming that he had dated Miss Elizabeth years before Savage and even produced photos of the two of them together with the best one.
And this is the days before Photoshop, folks. Like,
right?
You couldn't just go on your computer and do that kind of stuff.
No.
Do you remember at the time if you believed it when you saw it?
Oh, I believed it. And he threatened, or he said that he would produce the best one, the centerfold, which would be unveiled on the big screen at WrestleMania after the match.
Wow.
Of course, Flair lost, so we never did get to see that picture. And a few weeks later, Savage would release the real photos of him and Liz, proving that Flair's would be doctored. But
damn liar.
Did you know that the photo shoot with the pool and everything, that actually happened at Bobby Heenan's house and pool?
Really? Nice digs.
Little tidbit there for you.
That is. That's exactly what you promised at the beginning of this episode.
That's why you watch this, folks, to know this stuff. It's very, very important. But as far as the match itself goes, they brawl, and eventually Randy sends Flair into the guardrail, and Rick visibly blades. Vince was furious about the blade job. Savage then attacks the cut and hits Flair with both a flying axe handle and even a flying elbow drop. But Perfect pulls Savage out of the ring. Perfect would toss an object to Flair while the ref is distracted, and Rick uses it on Savage. Perfect also attacks Savage's knee with a chair, so Elizabeth arrives to help. Officials, including a young Shane McMahon, try to stop her. Meanwhile, Flair attacks the leg and locks Randy in a figure four while using Perfect for leverage. You can just see Flair's...
I always loved this faction, and they never got a name, I guess, but the Heenan, Flair, and Perfect together, three guys, all of them could speak, all of them had great personality that meshed well together.
It just made sense. It's so good. Savage would eventually reverse the hold, so Flair goes back to attacking the leg. He yells, "This is for you, baby," at Liz, but Savage blocks a punch and rolls Flair up with a handful of tights for the surprise win at 18 minutes. After the match, Heenan leaves the announce table in disgust while Flair yells, "What about me?" at Liz. Rick then kisses her, so she slaps him and Savage attacks. After this, he poses with the belt and fireworks explode, which startles Liz. Sean Mooney tries to get a word with Flair and Perfect, but Perfect tells him to shut it. Perfect then calls an injustice because Savage had a handful of trunks. Bobby Heenan then arrives and starts yelling about everyone seeing what happened. Then Flair says that Savage will walk around claiming to be the real world's champion and a two-time WWF champion, but he will also claim the love of that Jezebel, Elizabeth. Flair then says they don't cry over spilled milk. They reassemble the team. He also says that Savage did it once, and he dares him to do it again because one loss doesn't mean much in his career. Next, Perfect echoes Flair's words and tells Savage that he's damaged goods, just like Elizabeth. He also claims that Flair has never taken a shortcut as Savage did. Sure. They show a clip of the end of the match, and both Perfect and Heenan call Randy a cheater, just like Elizabeth. Finally, Flair threatens to beat both Savage and kiss Elizabeth on her moist, wet lips. Woo!
Disgusting.
Meanwhile,
what a chauvinist pig.
That Ric Flair, yeah. Meanwhile, Gene is over with the new champion, Savage and Liz. Gene says that some might call it a questionable victory, but Savage says he doesn't care. He says he took a piece of Flair by taking what makes him tick. Then Savage says, "You haven't been beat up properly yet." He follows that up by saying he wants the whole Nature Boy and the whole Flair package. Meltzer gave this match. Thank you. Meltzer gave this 4 1/4. I give it 5 stars. What do you think?
Yeah, it should have been the main event. Hogan politicking obviously was not going to be that way. It's unfortunate. Just another case of Hogan keeping his supposed best friend down. But yeah, match of the night, I guess, then. Hey, Bish?
Yeah, this pay-per-view literally could have ended right here and would have been great. Taker and Jake, it is what it is, but still pretty cool to see them fight each other. We got some history of Sean and Tito, and then, of course, Brett Piper in this match here were just awesome. But unfortunately, the pay-per-view was only halfway over, and the rest of it is drizzling dog shit. Yeah.
All right. I mean, you say that, but I'm looking at what's coming up next is Tatanka, and against the Model, and these are two great guys. Where does it go wrong?
This is just a short little squash match to showcase Tatanka. It's less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But some background information on Tatanka. He tried out for the Miami Dolphins, Detroit Lions, the Redskins, the Commanders now, the Washington Commanders,
all right.
the Oakland Raiders.
Make sure that we don't let that racist term go in.
Get that beeped in there. Yeah,
that's right. Beep it. Racist. Did you know Tatanka is actually indigenous, though? Did you know that?
Yes, yeah, he actually is.
I always thought recently I was working with an indigenous man who said that Tatanka was a hero of his, and for some reason I thought that he was Italian in real life. Tatanka, and I said, I had broken what I thought was the bad news, but did a little bit of research after the fact, had to retract my statements, and sure enough, one of the rare times that the minority person on screen in the WWF is actually the minority that they're playing.
That's a good fact. Yeah, that is a really rare thing, isn't it? Yokozuna, of course. But yeah, he's a
Muhammad Hassan.
Yeah.
I think Chief Jay Strombo is not.
Good one.
But do you know who is? Jim Ross.
Oh,
Jim Ross. Hold on now. Gerald Briscoe. And there's a lot of people from around like Oklahoma that have roots. But anyways, there you go. More you know.
Yeah.
Those are some trivia questions right there.
Yeah, Tatanka, proud Native American. This would actually be the beginning of his 19-month unbeaten streak. Did you remember that? 19 months the man was undefeated.
Yes, Tatanka was one of my favorite guys. I love Tatanka, and couldn't believe it when he sold out.
Couldn't believe it. We'll do that episode one day. That's a good storyline. Next, we have Money Inc., the champions, tag team champions versus the Natural Disasters.
Love both of these teams too. I'm surprised that is this another squash match or what? I mean, these were 4 singles wrestlers that couldn't have been paired up with a better tag partner. The names write themselves. It was made in the stars.
Made in the stars. The -2 stars that this got from Meltzer, one of the lowest rated WrestleMania.
Real applause for that. That was a good one. Oh, a little horn action there.
Basically, the Road Warriors hockey got suspended, so they had to change direction here. They turned the Disasters face in the wintertime. This is actually supposed to be Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Sergeant Slaughter against Money Incorporated.
Ugh.
Don't know if that would have been any better.
No.
But this match was just the Disasters beating up and botching spots against Money Inc. before Money just walks out and takes the count out to retain their titles.
Now, and I like a good heel count out thing like that. I know Meltzer will give it a negative star, but I don't mind taking the count out win. And those guys, the Natural Disasters, they're big guys. They're going to botch, okay? Earthquake. What was the other guy? Typhoon, who's Tugboat, who's Fred Ottoman.
Ottman, yeah.
Ottman. Maybe that's a guy that people want to see at WrestleCon. I don't know. We can throw him up on the list too.
I would love to get the Shockmaster at WrestleCon. Wouldn't you, folks? Shockmaster.
Maybe we could get Fred and we can get Ted, or not both, or IRS, and we can finally bring the fans what they've been waiting to see since 1992, and is the reunion of the WrestleMania 8
Tag Team Championship match.
Representatives from Money Inc. versus the Natural Disasters. Charge people a pretty penny for that one.
Give me a hell yeah!
Nice.
All right, cut it. They don't need- Yes. Good. Okay.
The next match, we have a dud. We have a 1 minute and 9 second dud. Owen Hart versus Skinner. Owen gets to win.
Oh, he does? I like Skinner too, man. I was a character that I enjoyed. You know, didn't really see a whole lot of him, but you know who the character was. I don't think that you can have a dud. I don't like the idea that a dud is a match that is about a minute long because it's not long enough to really leave a bad taste in your mouth. You know, if this thing was like 15 minutes long and it sucked, that's a dud. Minute long squash match, whatever.
You heard it, Meltzer.
Star. Give it a star,
Meltzer. Jeez.
I mean, look what happened.
We'll give it a star. We'll give it a star. We'll give it a star for Owen. Yeah.
Yes.
Backstage, we see Psycho Sid, and he's with Mean Gene Okerlund. And in the interview, he yells, "Shut up, you fat, bald-headed little oaf."
Nice.
One of my favorite Sid lines of all time.
Give him Mike. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Sid. As he mentioned earlier,
crazy. Hulk Hogan is going to be the last man standing out of all these guys.
I know.
You see Hulk at these live events now. It's not looking good. Like it's like a balloon that most of the air has been let out of, and he can't rip his shirt, but he's still holding on. And we'll see who's going to really win the match, the real match between him and Flair. You know,
it's going to be so good.
Who's going to live longer? Coming down to the wire. Flair kicked out at 2 a couple of years ago.
But
all right, let's get to the main event.
Let's get to this main event real quick. Let's skim over this. Hulk versus Sid, as we mentioned earlier. Jack Tunney held a press conference. Sid began to stand up, assuming it would be him announced as the number 1 contender. But instead, Hogan was announced. Sid was pissed off. He slammed the table, crumpled some papers, and cut a nasty promo. After the announcement, Sid later apologized and offered to team up with Hogan against Undertaker and Ric Flair at Saturday night's main event. Nice. As the match began to wind down, Hogan had been beaten down by Flair and Taker for most of the match, and he was trying to tag Sid, trying to tag him. And as soon as he reached it, Sid jumped off the ring apron, giving Hogan the big F-U, turned his back on him. Yeah. The crowd went ballistic, and Sid walked over to Brutus Beefcake, who was there in Hogan's corner, and he threatened to punch him in the face. Beefcake, of course, at the time had the accident, so he was the metal in his face. It would have been catastrophic.
For real.
Yeah.
Now there's another guy, Brutus Beefcake. That's another guy I'd like to see at WrestleCon personally. That's a guy I'd like to. That's a shoot interview, right?
That is a shoot interview. That would be amazing. Let's see. Sid picked up Dr. Harvey Whippleman as his manager along the way and started on a run of jobber destruction that was awe-inspiring. Week after week.
We went through most of this, right?
We did.
In our thing. This is the one where Sid beat down 2 jobbers at the same time.
Yep.
That was good stuff.
Good stuff. And if you want to look at our Sid archived episode and go through all this in detail, the link is here.
Yeah, I'm just seeing what you got coming up here. I mean, these are almost the exact same photos from that show, aren't they?
Yeah. So we're not going to go over the match because we said we've done it before. So we'll skim over everything here.
Okay. You tried to get a fast one on us, didn't you, Aaron? Didn't you?
No, never.
You retraced your homework and passed it in as though it were new.
Never. I would not do such a thing.
I'm looking at the photos now. Put up the next photo. It's Sid where he gets the thing in his face.
Yeah.
We talked about that for an hour.
There you go. Before the event, he's on the barbershop. This happens.
No, don't even. Just move along. We don't need to cover that point. Go watch the archives. You want to know what happened there with Sid.
Yeah, exactly. In real life, we get the sit-down interview with Hogan, but in real life, as we said, he wanted to distance himself from the company, so he's leaving the WWF. We don't see him for a year. He goes to Hollywood to focus on Mr. Nanny and all that good stuff.
This is the worst WWF Hogan era with the thinned out mustache.
Yeah.
And the he's not as big. He's trying to get into actor mode. I just really hate what he did to his mustache here.
At the end of the match, Papa Shango was supposed to come out and cause a DQ. Instead, he was late.
To the end of the match already.
Yeah, we're just going to jump right to the end.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So we covered this. This is where Papa Shango. I thought this killed Papa Shango's career, but then you corrected me and said that he would actually go on to most of the memorable stuff after this. So it didn't kill his run whatsoever.
No. But yeah, he missed his cue. Sid was supposed to. They're supposed to break up the leg drop.
What are you doing back there, man? You got one thing at the main event, and you.
Oh yeah, you got one thing. You got one job. Yeah. But anyway, Harvey Wiltman, because Papa Shango was late with his cue, Harvey had to cause the DQ, which is why Sid kicked out of the leg drop.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and we see the return of the Ultimate Warrior.
So this ends in a DQ. The main event ends in a DQ instead of ending the pay-per-view with the WWF Championship match that had a way more coherent storyline and at least an actual ending.
Correct. This is the only WrestleMania main event in history to end in a DQ.
Oh, there you go. What do you give it?
The match or the pay-per-view?
The match.
The match, Meltzer gave this -2 stars.
It seems like he was in a bad mood. I mean, this is -2 stars? What else did he give -2 stars to?
Just that tag team match.
Yeah. Are they equally bad?
I mean, I think the Hogan one's a little bit better because you got Hogan and Sid. I mean, you got to give this thing at least a star. Yeah, give it something. But anyway, the first half of this pay-per-view, overall thoughts, I thought was great. The second half, not so much.
Yeah.
It's still better than WrestleMania's 1, 2, 9, 11. So, I mean, 4 even, yeah. So it's a run-of-the-mill WrestleMania. I'll give it 6 out of 10 because of the 2 awesome matches and some of the history-making stuff. But, yeah, not as good as I remember it as a kid.
There you go. And that's what it's all about. Going down memory lane and ruining those memories.
There you have it, folks. WrestleMania 8. Wrestling fans, subscribe to this amazing channel by clicking on the bell below. And when you're done watching this, go ahead and like it. If you leave a comment, you can win a free t-shirt. Then do yourself a favor and go look at our amazing Patreon page for free with a 7-day trial. You'll see first-person experiences from a multitude of wrestling events over the past 20 years, along with videos that any action figure collector would love to see. Finally, you can catch up on all of our previous episodes at BWFpodcast.com.